for coming here to speak today. I don't have visuals, but I promise I will use very, very photographic and flowery language for you to be able to see what I'm talking about here today. My name is Hughes. I'm a startup founder, I'm an angel investor, I'm a dad, and I'm a community builder. And that last piece is what I want to spend most of my time talking about today. As a community builder, one of the things that I've learned the most about is not only that we need to think about how people build in public, but we need to figure out ways to help people learn in public. One of my favorite sayings is to make sure that we treat knowledge more like a library and less like a vault. So as we learn things, it's going to be important for us to go out of our way to make sure we're sharing them with others so that they can learn. So if I learn something that takes me 2 months, I want it to be taught to you in 2 weeks so that you're able to accelerate this and so we can all come up together. So I know that I'm between all of you and lunch, and this has been a great conference. I want to shout out to Justin and the Render team and everyone for putting this on. But today I'll be talking to you specifically about fractionalization in Web3 and how fractional ownership is ownership. So I'll talk a little bit about my Web3 journey and understanding how I got into the space. And then I'll talk to you a little bit about the tools that I use today within my community to help everyone learn a little bit more, invest a little bit more, and support a little bit more. So my company, Bandwagon, has been building with blockchain since 2017. And I've known about this stuff for a while. But as a consumer, I never even thought to buy Bitcoin. I never even thought to buy Ethereum. And so as all these currencies and different things are changing and moving, I was left out. And as I learned more about the industry, I think late 2019, I said, man, I really like these applications. The technology made sense. How many of you are familiar with like physical art, like fine art, right? Show of hands, right? So you understand like, okay, if I said this Banksy painting was by Banksy, well, how do I know when I'm buying it from that gentleman's house? How do I know it's actually Banksy? Well, I have to get someone who's got a notebook, they're gonna write it down, and I gotta trust that that person is in cahoots with this person. So I love that about blockchain. I love the provenance that it showed. It was able to show consistency, owner to owner to owner. So I was like, okay, let's see more about how this technology works. So in the beginning for me, one of my first NFTs, non-fungible tokens, was NBA Top Shot, right? I was never a baseball card collector or anything like that, primarily because I didn't think I had the discipline to keep them in pristine condition. But that's one of the things I love about the blockchain. These are digital assets. There's no corners that are going to get bent. They're not going to get faded in the sunlight. They're not going to get wet because your roof floods. And so for me, I understood the permanence of this technology. So we already have provenance, being able to understand the custody and the chain of ownership. We've got permanence, being able to say this thing doesn't fade, it doesn't go away. And so I love the ability to do that. But as I learned more about these different types of NFT, there's some really expensive ones, right? So I don't know if any of you have heard of CryptoPunks or Bored Apes, but these things are expensive, like very expensive. And the second part of this that I look at is that as a black person, I'm a first generation American, my family's Jamaican. I was taught to go to school, get good grades, get a good job, and be able to support back in the family. So the idea of putting money into a JPEG or a monkey was insane, right? It didn't make sense to me, it didn't compute. So in April of 2020, I think 2021, when they were minting, I saw it and I was just like, I'm not buying this. I'm not paying $500 for this. Now, obviously, had I done that, I would be in a different financial situation, right? But the thing is that a lot of us also weren't in a position to take that risk, but as we become more and more prominent, you say, oh, there is value in that asset. So then what happens? The thing is worth $100,000. Do we have $100,000? We probably don't. And so that's why I want to talk to you about fractionalization. Fractionalization actually allows you to say, I'm going to buy a small portion of this asset. So normally when you think about that, in purchasing any type of asset, you are the sole owner. But when we talk about blockchain as a technology, it actually allows for multiple people to participate. And when I think about my community, I think about group economics. So, for example, this big, beautiful building is very, very expensive, and I couldn't afford it. But I'm sure I could put together 200 or 400 people that could put up the money to buy this type of building. There's actually a piece of real estate which I wanted to show y'all that's actually listed on OpenSea, which is an NFT trading platform. Real estate, New York City. And they're saying we will sell it to you, I want to say for like 10 to 15,000 ETH. ETH is like $1,700 right now, so someone here can do that math. But the idea there is group buying this, I want to talk a little bit about how you can do it, and then also outcomes and how they impact. My first ever group buy was last year. We were buying a Damien Hirst piece. Damien Hirst is a notable painter and creator. For those of you who are Drake fans, the CLB, Certified Lover Boy cover, is actually inspired by Damien Hirst. Actually did a collaboration effort. So that's his intersectional culture there. And so we wanted to say, man, we want to help everyone in the community buy access to this very expensive NFT, digital piece of art. But people didn't have a lot of money. So we said, well, what if we could find a way to allow everyone to put just enough for what they could contribute? We knew that would do two things. One, that lowers the risk profile for everyone involved. But then two, that creates a new asset class that many people are participating in. So if we buy the thing for 5E, and I put in 0.1, and you put in 0.25, and we sell the entire piece for 10E, I double my money, you double your money, and everyone gets 2. So as I've been working with my team at Black Hat, which is a community for Black founders, funders, creators, and community builders, we wanted to think through how do we help more folks get into some of these quote-unquote blue chip NFTs, so they're able to say, hey look, I missed it last April, I didn't buy it when it first came out, but I still think there's upside. How do we evaluate that? So we're able to use blockchain technology in this Web3 space to allow for fractional ownership. So from there, the number one thing people think about is investments. Oh, I'm going to buy this for X, I'm going to flip it for 2X, which is a great strategy. But I think there's another step that we often miss, is supporting our community. One of the first fractional buys I ever did was with CryptoPunks. One of the things that we noticed, and some of you may notice it too, first of all, let me get a show of hands. How many people own an NFT? Like a single one? Okay, so a few people, okay, great. So one of the things, so educating the other folks, one of the things that you will know as you learn the space is that, surprisingly enough, or unsurprisingly enough, I guess, the darker skin tone NFTs are less expensive. And so what we found was, man, that's really weird. Racism exists in this market too. That's crazy. Thought blockchain was the solve for all of this. And so we did a group buy called the Crypto Cookout, and we said we're going to buy some Black crypto punks and raise the floor. So the floor is the cheapest piece in an entire collection. Most of these collections are 10,000 pieces. And so if you imagine all of the Black or darker skin tones are the lowest, then if you buy those and raise the price, then now you lifted the entire collection up and you lifted the value of the ones that you have. And so we did that and said, okay, we're going to do this. So we bought Hallie, which I think was our first one. And the whole idea was like, yeah, we're going to raise the floor for this. And it inspired a lot of people to do some other things. Let's support Black artists. Because if you think about who the creators are in this economy, oftentimes it's like anonymous accounts that are creating these massive collections, or people who may not look like us, and in some cases are appropriating culture in ways that we don't find advantageous, and we're definitely not getting money for that. And so another thing that we've been able to do is find ways to support up-and-coming Black artists, up-and-coming Black creators, and Black community builders that need that capital to try and pull this together. So the main things I'm trying to think about with fractionalization is number one, that allows for group economics. It allows multiple people to contribute whatever they can to be able to be successful at hitting the goal. Number two, that it creates an investment opportunity. In some cases, most of us will be priced out. I gave the example of me buying this building, but instead if I buy a small part of the building, I can still win if the building's value goes up. The third piece there is making sure that we're able to support the projects and the creators that we like to. And that's really important for me, because I think that as more and more people have the ability to create in this space, we're going to change what is created. Right? If you take the tools that allow people to create and democratize them, allow for all of us to create, we're going to see new and more prolific things being created. So I wanted to show a demo from this point, but wasn't able to connect. So I'll just tell you a little bit about a couple of the tools that I'm a big fan of, and I would love to have questions about anything there. So I don't know if someone's got the mic in the back, they can get them over. So one of our favorite tools is a platform called Prism. So that's PRYSM.xyz. That allows you to facilitate squad buys or group buys. So you can think about this in the same way as you and your friends going in to buy a piece of art, or you and your friends going in to buy whatever it is. Prism, fantastic product. We're big fans of them. You just get your crypto wallet. We're happy to talk about crypto wallets with anyone else. And then from there, you have your traditional wallets. MetaMask is one, and Rainbow is the other. There are lots of other ones, but those are the two that I normally talk about. And so even though we're not able to share some of the general stuff, I want to make sure I left extra time to take questions about how we did the buys, anything we're thinking about from a target standpoint, because ultimately our goal here is to make sure we're educating folks to understand this is a new way forward. The ability to fractionally own something is going to take a lot of people from, I'm not able to buy X, but I'm able to contribute to 1/100th of X, and that'll allow us to all move forward. So I think this is the opportunity that more of our leaders and community builders need to leverage these tools to gather their communities and groups to help us move forward, acquiring assets that are going to be able to expand and improve our community. And so that is like the more structured piece of this. I would love to have any questions from you all about how we've done this, things we can see in the future, or anything you have about Web3, as I know I am the only person standing between you and lunch. I don't know if you do the mic. Where's my co-host? Yeah. No? Let's see. All right, I'll just walk around and then I'll repeat the question.
There you go.
Oh, he's got it. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, good.
Good? Oh, perfect. So one thing I was thinking about, like as you were talking about these tools, and like MetaMask, for example, and Rainbow, is that some of this work is, or a lot of it seems to be happening on the Ethereum blockchain. And I remember trying to onboard folks, like over the last, like 2 years, and kind of running into the difficulty of gas fees. So just like super high transaction costs, which is a barrier to entry. And I wanted to ask you, like in your work, how you're thinking about other layer 2s, like maybe Solana, or like even doing stuff on Polygon, which gets tricky. Like, how are you thinking about access from like a fees, like gas fees and transaction cost standpoint?
Yeah, sure. So this question was about the infrastructure that exists today. We're still very early, and so it's cost prohibitive for many people who are trying to join it, and asking primarily about the types of chains. So I think that's one of the things that we have to acknowledge is the fact that if you look at the adoption curve of the internet and lay it on top of the adoption curve of Web3, specifically NFTs, we are in 1998, Q2 of 1998, right now. And so you think about all the internet tools that were created after that and where we are right now in 1998. And so I think one of the things to acknowledge is like, yes, the transaction fee, which is what the gas fee is. So right now we all know that if we swipe our credit card, it's 2.9% plus 30 cents or whatever. In crypto, that fee is dynamic, right? And the reason it's dynamic is because you've got these smart machines called miners. And the miners are basically saying, we're gonna work for whatever the top dollar is. So if I'm trying to send Drew $1 million, and Barry is trying to write a picture of a tiger as an NFT, I may say, no, I really have to send this $1 million. I'm willing to pay more money so that my transaction's picked by a miner first. And so it's all dynamic pricing, all the way up. So when the network is busy, the price goes up. When the network isn't busy, the price goes down. So when you have some of these massive projects or well-known people who are releasing NFT collections, the price of gas goes up because people have a high amount of demand. So to your point, the thing that I realized is, number one, Ethereum still is the largest network. It has the most users. There are more projects there. And so for me, I look at customer acquisition costs. And so if I know everyone already is on Ethereum, I know that everyone already has a MetaMask or Rainbow wallet, I'm probably going to go there and try to make sure I'm optimizing for contract pricing. To make sure I say, hey y'all, we're going to not make our mint for 2 hours, we're going to make our mint for 2 days. So buy the NFT whenever gas is right for you. And you can do certain things with the technology to make the contract less complicated. So you can think about this as, let's say I'm using Gigway, let's say I'm using Fiverr, and I need someone to do a transcription of a conversation. I have one conversation that's just me talking. I need to transcribe my voice. Then there's another file I say, hey, this is a transcription of 7 different voices, and 2 of them are speaking different languages. Which one is going to be easier for the person to do? The one that's just my voice. And so that's contract optimization. I can make a contract simpler for the miners to process. And so the people who are looking and saying, oh, I want to process this one. This is an easy one. So hopefully that's a simple explanation of how mining works and how it chooses. I'm a big fan of Solana. None of this is financial advice. I should have said this at the very beginning. I'm a big fan of Solana. We actually use a layer 2 solution called Palm on our blockchain. My company focuses on user-generated content. So the thing that we look at there is the fact that Instagram taught all of us that we're photographers. Twitter taught all of us that we're bloggers. But none of these platforms taught us how we own our content on the internet. And as content creators, we're all truly creators. And the things that we own are making these massive companies lots and lots of money. And we do not own the commercial rights and barely own the derivative rights. And so for us, we're saying, well, what if you could take a picture of Steph Curry hitting this jumper and sell it to Steph Curry? And then Under Armour uses your picture in the upcoming ad, and you get a piece of that. For those of you who have kids, I have 2 kids. And my son, when I was first time dad, I post pictures and I would tag Cheerios or I tag what the brand is, and then someone would say, the brand would say, hey, can you use this picture? And when I didn't know any better, I'd say, yeah, of course, of course. Now I'm like, yes, you can use it, you can pay $500, you can only use it on Instagram, you can only do this for this duration. And so when we talk about ownership, I think that part of that is leveraging tools like the blockchain. And one of the things we acknowledge is that a main layer solution like Ethereum is too expensive. So we use layer 2, Polygon, Palm, some of these others. Thank you for that question. Any other questions? He's got the mic.
Hey Harold.
Hey, how are you?
This was great, very informative. So I understand the utility that you just explained as far as ownership for your son's picture. Can you make a bridge for me between that use case and the CryptoPunks or NFT use case? Because I'm still kind of struggling with why do I want a picture of a gorilla?
For sure. No, that's a great question. So this is where I get into a little bit of theory and soapboxing, so y'all have to allow me here. The pandemic accelerated a lot of things. Number one among them was digital community adoption. Many of us were home and sit inside for 12 months, 18 months, depending on where you are, how Atlanta was, and how Houston was. So depending on how you were, people was at home. And so digital community adoption became very, very important through the pandemic. And one of the best ways to do that was figuring out these digital communities where having this icon or this profile picture signified I am part of this exclusive club. So that's number one. Number two, at the time we were in a bull market, like a running bull market. And so people had so much cash. And so one of the things I like to say as an example is like, this is a pretty nice watch. It's not a Rolex, but it's a nice watch. But you wouldn't know it's a nice watch unless we're sitting here in person. I'm on Zoom. You don't see my nice watch. You don't see whoever's nice car. And so people in a bull market, flush with cash, needed a new way to show off their wealth. And so that's when you got these communities pop up and say, hey, I've got a Bored Ape. And you see that, and all you have to know is like, well, I know that cost, so you must have money. And so I think the first part of it is adoption to digital communities, being able to say, this is what signifies my wealth, my access, and all of that. That's number one. Number two is, for a lot of the communities, they're giving you the commercial rights to be able to use it. I can't remember the guy's name. He's a comedian. I want to say it's the short guy with the red hair. I don't know the second fraud. I can't remember who it was. But he decided, because he had the commercial rights, to create an entire cartoon series around his character. And normally that would have a lot of following. And so that's one of the things you get, is that you have built-in commercial rights. One of my favorite projects right now is the Aku project by Michael Johnson. It's amazing. It's the president of the organization, Summer Watson. She's super dope. And they haven't given commercial rights to their holders. Primarily because they say, we're going to do a better job of leveraging this than you as an individual. So you can imagine if all of us in this room each had the rights to sell whatever the logo was here. You may not be great at selling it, but if Render or Justin said, hey, look, I'm going to sell you this logo, it's going to cost $15 grand, and it's going to allow all of us to participate in some way, it makes more sense. So for me, I think the biggest thing you're seeing with some of these projects running up is really showing off wealth, digital community, as well as making sure that if you have a commercial rights, you're able to create TV shows, make products, and so on and so forth. So I'm a big fan of some of these brands that are buying NFTs and saying, we're going to use this. Like one of the NFTs that I have, it's a hot sauce NFT. And they bought a mutant ape. So a Bored Ape that's been like mutant, whatever. They created a version of spicy honey, and they call it mutant honey. And the eighth face is on every label. And so for people are like, oh my gosh, this is super cool, it's different, it's edgy. And so that's where you're able to leverage some of it. But I think a lot of it is people thinking through how to show off money. And then of course you've got to deal with some of the financial issues. We think about fraud, money washing, all these different things. So we can't like anything like that in a lot of that. Oh, she got it. And we got time for 2 more questions.
My question was, sort of going back to the verse, but how do you actually gauge whether or not an NFT will be profitable? Because I know fractionalization sounds amazing, but I really want to know like the set standards you follow when gauging whether or not to choose an NFT to invest in. Because I'm still very new to all of it.
Yeah, so this question was about how do I decide how should we evaluate collections to support. So number 1 for me, I like to buy things that I like, which is cost me money, or opportunity cost me money. Have any of y'all seen this new collection called the Goblins? Okay, they're hideous. They look absolutely awesome. And so you think they look awesome? Oh, to me, right, yes. So I think they look awful. And for me, I'm like, I want to buy in a way that if you came to my house and I swiped through my collection, you're like, oh, that's interesting. This is a man who's got this kind of taste and culture. So I didn't buy the Goblins. I also don't like cats. So when Cool Cats came out, I was like, I'm not buying a cat, I don't like cats. Cool Cats ran up to whatever they ran up to. So for me, I think number 1, above all, is buy stuff you're into. Like if you would be ashamed that someone knew that you had that piece in your collection, don't buy it because the blockchain is public. So if I ever have your wallet address, I'm able to see everything you've ever bought. I'm able to see how you got the money in there. I'm in a really insulated community of people who in some cases don't realize how transparent this stuff is. And if you don't understand the tech, you can get caught up doing some bad things. So for me, I like to buy things that if people knew I owned it, they would be cool with me. I don't think that. So number 1, buy things you own. As you think about investments though, and again, I'm not financial advice, but for me, I think the biggest thing is understanding who's the team building it, what successes they had in the market, what cultural relevance do they have to me and my community, and then of course, what is the product roadmap? So Board 8 was talking about having a hotel in Miami. That's cool if you want to stay there. World of Women has talked about creating collaborations to onboard women into Web3. If I have to pick where I'm going to put my money, it's probably going to be World of Women, which is why I own it, because I believe in that cause. And so understanding what they're going to do with the money and how doxed as the team is. So are these real people who have shown you that they exact this is my LinkedIn, this is my Twitter, or are they anonymous accounts and personalities where it's like, so what happens if they disappear? Like them, right? So for me, I look at those kinds of things. Do I care about the art? Would I be proud to show this off? Who's building the product? And then lastly, what are they going to do with the money? And then from there, you get a chance to play a little bit of, all right, I'm going to wait and see, decide that. So the Goblins in our Black Hat community, people were literally saying, hey, I bought this. Or no, they got it and they said, should I sell it at 0.3? So like, oh no, sell it at 0.5, man. List it at 0.5. The things are 7 ETH now, 15 grand, 14 grand. And so you think about how all of that changes, a lot of it's unpredictable. And so for me, my best investments have come from buying things I care about, understanding who's making them, and thinking about the roadmap and what they're going to do. Time for one last question. And I'll let y'all get to lunch. Any other questions? All right. Oh, one more here. Lee Johnson. Good.
Yeah, this is a rare double question. I didn't want to if having it up here. Okay, so we walk out of this and we're like, NFTs are dope. And my question is, how do you have these conversations with people when, I think generationally, there's a lot of like NFT hate, right? Like, I think if you search like on Twitter, like NFT and kill, or like NFT in any violent term, you'll see like NFT bro should die, NFT bro should X. And really, like, this room is not representative of NFT bros, but like, the larger like societal like narrative is seeing NFTs in this way, or like seeing the the part of us that like showing off your wealth in a certain way. Like, how are you dealing with NFT wealth, like NFT hate, and how might you suggest like some of us have conversations with our friends and our peers about NFTs in a way that gets us to a better place?
Yeah, that's a great question and a fantastic one to close on. So I'll say this, and I'm specifically talking to black people, brown people, women. In a lot of cases, specifically this, in a lot of cases we are left out. The thing I tell people all the time is that I didn't even get a chance to make fun of big people. I didn't even get a chance to make fun of children. No one told me about it. This is 10, 15 years I'm in college, I knew these people. I didn't even get a chance to get the jokes off about how dumb this idea is. And so, I missed that boat, right? Everyone's like, oh, Bitcoin is down. Could you imagine getting it in 2013? It's not down, you're winning, right? And so, for me, as I look at the space, yes, you should have a high level of discernment entering this space. You should do your own research. You should look at trusted outlets. You should be very, very careful about the amount of money you put into this really unprotected asset in a lot of ways. But at the same time, I want to encourage people to take a few more risks, to learn just a little bit more. Because what I don't want to have happen is that this turns into another boom. And we are on the outside waiting, saying we're just waiting for the right time, and we as a people play double dutch for 5 years, as the other people are saying, I'll put 10 grand into this and park it because they don't need the 10 grand. They're flush. And say, oh well, this is my gamble. So I would love to encourage people to say, I want to learn more. Actually, I have talk about this a little bit here. So I forgot that I had this in my bag. So I told you I'm a dad. I wrote a kid's book about blockchain, right? Because it was important for me not only for my son to be able to understand it, but for other people to be able to say, explain to me like a 5-year-old. Like literally, explain to me like a 5. And so I tell my son, say, hey, where do you put your toys when you're done playing? And my toys go in the toy box. Okay, well, where do the plates and dishes go? Oh, those go in the cupboard. Where do your clothes go? They go in the closet. Okay, great. Well, this is data. Where does data go? Data goes into the database. Oh, okay. Well, what's the difference between your toy box and the toy box at school? Well, the toy box at school is shared. Like other people have their toys in it, but the toy box at home is my personal toy box. Well, that's the difference between blockchain, a public and shared database, and a private database, like the things you store on your computer. And so it's important for me to educate him as a 5-year-old, as well as everyone else. So I think that sometimes we get caught up in the pictures of monkeys and stuff like that, but I think at the end of the day, I want to encourage more people to take more risks in the smart ways and to lean on the community. And so that's why we're building what we're building at Black At. You can learn more about that at blackat.io. We're building this community, and we want to make sure we're putting not just onboarding and education, but we want people to think about how they're changing their economic position through a unique asset that I do think is going to matter over the next decade or so. So I appreciate the question. Thank you so much. And I appreciate all of y'all for joining me today. I know there's some dope ass panels that are happening right now and the rest of the day. So thank y'all for coming. Shout out to Render and his amazing team here. Thank y'all.